Hello, it's Heidi Fisher here with the Social Enterprise Online Festival, and today I'm joined by Mo. We're doing the interview slightly differently today in that I'm actually in the same place as the person I'm interviewing, so I get to sit next to Mo. Mo is from Harris Accountancy. Mo, could you tell us a little bit about your background and experience, please?
My name is Mohammed, and I have been working with social enterprises for over 3.5 years. I'm a part qualified accountant. I've got a bachelor's in accounting and finance, and I'm currently working towards my ACCA.
Brilliant. So, Mo, obviously in that time you've met a lot of different social enterprises. What kind of issues do you find they have around finances and accounting?
Okay, the first one which kind of stands out in my head is all majority of the social enterprises they assume that with regards with regards to their social purpose and background, they're not eligible to pay any taxes to HMRC and Companies House or any of those above. With regards to taxes, even though you might be a social enterprise, but if you're making a profit or a surplus, you will have to pay corporation tax. It's nothing to be scared of. It's always good to give back to the community, and in a certain way that you are technically giving back to the community.
Yeah, so that's a really good point because a lot of people do assume because they're doing something good for society that they won't pay tax. So that's a great reminder for people to remember that. What other kinds of things have you come across?
Because normally it is a one-man show with the small social enterprises for the time being. Uh, Many of the directors or the trustees kind of forget that to keep their personal expenditure and the business expenditure on a separate way. So ideally, for the social enterprises, the first things first would be to open up a bank account under the business name, no matter how small it is, but it kind of gives you that security and that differentiation between the personal and business.
Okay, that's another good tip.
Yeah,
You don't want to get everything muddled up together and then try and sort it out at the end of the year.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few more, you know, issues or problems that I've come across. For example, uh, majority of the social enterprises kind of rely on grant funding. But with regards to Brexit, it's there's a and a lot of the economic structure in our country at the moment. It might not be the ideal way of going forward. Yes, rely on grants to start up a business, but try to move away from grants and be self sufficient and have different revenue streams.
Mhm.
Um, the other major thing that I've come across is that social enterprises don't budget properly. Unfortunately, they don't take into consideration that they might have to pay corporation tax, they might have to pay income tax if the company is registered for PAYE. They also kind of forget to account for accountancy fees. That's really surprising, especially that with regards to if you are relying on grant, they give you a section saying any additional costs. So it could be insurance, um, accountancy fees, and legal costs. So
Mhm.
just setting up the business itself, you can account for that in the future.
Yeah, it's really important to remember all of the what might be hidden costs
Yes.
of running a social enterprise. Um, that's a good tip.
And there's one more thing that I've noticed that majority of social enterprises kind of forget to account for it. That's evaluating if they are eligible for paying VAT or not. So if they've reached the threshold. So for the time being, it is at 80 to 85,000 per ounce. But it also depends on what kind of income you receive. Is it exempt income? Is it zero rated? Is it taxable income? Or is it income which is not eligible for VAT at all? So ideally, it would be a better thing that if the directors or the social entrepreneurs keep a spreadsheet of different sources of income, whereby they can actually evaluate it on a monthly basis. Right? I would have said it on a daily basis, but a monthly basis is more realistic to evaluate your finances and where you stand as a business.
Okay. So, would you recommend people get advice and professional help from an accountant, or would you say they can do this themselves in terms of managing their finances?
Um, to be honest, initially before you go to an accountant, I would advise that you do your research. Uh, Majority of the accountants don't exactly give a free consultation, but here at Harris we give a free initial 45 minutes consultation where the 45 you can use that time to ask any questions. So ideally, if I were in any of your shoes at the moment, I would do my research and use that 45 minutes wisely. So ask in a specific questions rather than generic questions. So it's kind of bringing more work on myself, but it's benefiting the social entrepreneurs and the social enterprises in which way they can grow, which way is the best practice. So yes, do research before you go to see your accountant, so at least you know that what the accountant is saying is correct and is in line with the regulations in which are relevant at that point in time. But at the same time, you can ask specific questions where you can benefit a bit further in that time.
A lot of accountants don't work very regularly with social enterprises. Would you say to people as part of their research is finding asking questions about how many social enterprises the firm works with, what whether they've worked with similar types of organisations, that kind of thing? Is that important to ask those things?
Yes, to a certain extent, but again, it comes down to your own research. I'll give you an example that recently we had a new client. So, for example, their accounts were done for the period ending 31st March 2017. However, they were a community interest company, and their previous accountant kind of forgot to submit the CIC 34 form and the £15 check. So they've done all the hard work. It's just they weren't very sure of how about to go about that. So it's ideally you got to realize that if you are late once, you have a penalty. The previous accountant might pay for the penalty, which is fair enough. But again, if you're late again for filing the accounts, the fees double. So you don't exactly want a black spot against your company name or your social enterprise. So ideally, if you would consider asking the right questions to the accountants regarding of the split between the private sector and the social enterprise sector, you might be able to get a better idea of what what is what is best suited for your firm or for your social enterprise.
Okay. What about when a lot of social enterprises have, say, just one person running the organisation, should they make that person self-employed or employed? Is there do you come across that as a question quite frequently?
Yes, every case is different. Every individual is different. Many people might have multiple sources of income, depending on that that time in the regulation. It might be relevant for you to research into if you are if you're considered as self-employed or employed. There is something called IR35 at the moment. It might be wise for yourselves to research a bit on that to see if you guys are, if you individuals are relevant or you are inclined to that IR35.
Is that something that you could help people with in terms of deciding whether they're self-employed or employed, and whether IR35 applies? Or
Yes, but then again, if you can, if a potential new client comes across to me, uh, for that 45 minutes that we provide, if they use it wisely, then they can get that help within that 45
Okay.
minutes. So yes, we can help, but every case is different. Every individual is different.
Yeah. So there's not one set of
Yeah,
rules
there's
that,
no one set of
yeah.
rules, and
Okay. But it's quite a big issue for people, is it? Whether, because what I've seen is a lot of people want to be self-employed because the national insurance rates are lower and they think it's cheaper and better for their organisation, but actually there's guidance that decides whether you are or not, isn't there?
yes, exactly. If I'm not mistaken, there is an article on our website which will help you to differentiate if you are self-employed or employed.
Okay, perfect. That's a good resource to look at. Okay. The other question I wanted to ask was around whether people should use spreadsheets or get software, or what's your opinions around that?
It again depends on uh, how how big or how quick you are growing. So depending on the level of turnover, if your of turnover for the first day is £10,000 and a software is being charged like £200-300, it might be better for you to keep it at Excel level, because it's very simple and cost effective. But as you grow, I would always advise to get accounting software, for example, QuickBooks. It's very simple to use. It doesn't use jargon in comparison to other softwares. I personally prefer QuickBooks, so yes, there's always a free trial going on in by QuickBooks for a month, and they've always got promotion offers, and they're quite reasonable. So yes, if people do consider getting accounting softwares, QuickBooks is always a good tool to look at, and there's of course other tools available um, as a third party outside there. Um, Also, there is something called making tax digital. So there's another. I'm not trying to scare you guys off at the moment, or at all. But it's just that eventually, all 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 companies should be on an accounting software to deliver the right information to HMRC on whatever quarterly basis. It's quite far away, but at least you know something about it. So another point, research on making tax digital. It might help you in the future.
Okay. So making tax digital, what does that mean? Everything has to be online, so you won't be able to file anything by post, or
Um, at the moment, they're still working on it. So they haven't got it like 100%. the system they use is not 100% at the moment. They're just trialing out. But as far as our sources go, it says that in the next couple of years it should be up and running. So it's similar to like how you file quarterly VAT returns. So rather than just filing year-end accounts, you would have to file quarterly information based upon that.
Oh my God.
It
sounds like a nightmare.
No,
Doing it quarterly, once a year is enough.
if it's on a software, it's a lot easier, and you just have to click a button and it would transmit the information. But again, it's still on a trial basis, but it's always good to be ahead of time and research upon making tax digital.
Okay. So really, this is going to force people to keep up to date with their finances and not leave it till the end of the year.
Yes, yes. Yeah. We have had many clients who bring in like 2 3 days or 2 3 weeks before the deadline, and they don't want to pay the penalty, But at the end of the day, if you're a social enterprise, you should always be. I personally believe you should always be on top of your paperwork. You should always be, like within a couple of weeks of your year end, you should be able to give your information to your accountant, or on the other hand, do yourself. So at least you're prepared to get more grant, more funding, just to grow. So I'm assuming the ideal situation would be that if your year end is 30th October, 31st October, ideally by the first week of November, you should have all your paperwork up and running. So at least you can give it to your
So
accountant.
really about being a bit more efficient
Yes,
and
yes.
keeping on top of your finances,
Yes.
not letting it all pile up in the corner of your bedroom or your office if you've got one.
Yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was the pensions and some of the changes that have happened with pensions. What's happening with them?
Okay, something called auto enrollment. So if you are registered as your firm or your company is registered as an employer, um, there's a lot of different things. So you've got the state pension, but they're trying to encourage and they're kind of forcing uh, employees to have their own pension. But again, it depends on your circumstances. So directors have got a different circumstance. There's enough information available online to give you 100% accuracy. And again, it depends on your own, your own circumstance. So some directors might have other investments and they don't prefer to have a pension. Yes, you could opt out in that situation, but then again, there's another few paperwork that you have to do and file it with pension regulators. Um, it's an additional cost to the firm if you have multiple source of income and multiple source of employees, whereby the employees do wish to have a pension, and it's an additional cost to the company for the pension, as there will be the company's contribution and also filing it, and that's admin cost as well. So
Okay. So businesses basically got to start paying for pensions for their employees. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
it's not a bad thing.
No.
It's at the end of the day, when all of us are in our walking sticks, or hopefully not on our walking sticks, we've got at least additional source of income to go on multiple sunny holidays. So,
True.
yeah.
Okay. So you've mentioned quite a lot of areas there. What would be your top tips for social entrepreneurs around finances and accounting?
Okay. There's quite a few. I've got a few written down here. First things first. there's ample of free services available out there. For example, I'll give you my own example, the 45 minutes consultation. It's a free 45 minutes consultation. You can ask it, whatever kind of questions, as long as, it's relevant to yourself and it's going to benefit you. So um, always use that. Then there's, for example, keeping your records in the finances. Excel. Every computer right now has got a Microsoft Excel. Use that. That's the two things that I could, I would emphasize on, new startups and social enterprises. And yeah, keep your enterprise separate to yourself. It's not the same individual. It's two different identities. Again, bank account, your personal bank account and your business bank account should be different. Try to avoid to. I understand there's always times where uh, small businesses or small social enterprises where there's one man running the show and he or she puts in their own money. But again, keep a record of that. You can always claim that back in the future when the company is making surplus. Or alternatively, if the company is making a regular source of income and you do spend your own personal money on expenses, try to keep a expense sheet and then keep a bit of a record so at least at least you're not overspending your own personal money and kind of going in debt or some sort of and trying to keep your finances as healthy as possible. Um, Again, social enterprises, I cannot emphasize enough that they're not always exempt from any from taxes. Um, some of my clients have got this method of keeping 20% of their income towards corporation tax. Think about it. Yes, it might not be 20%, but then in the future, that 20% can be reinvested already into the business to grow. So that's always a good thing. Um, don't be scared to ask for advice. Ring HMRC if you're not too sure. Ring HMRC. You don't have to give your company name or your personal name. Just be like, I've got a general inquiry, and hopefully they can help you out as much as they can. Don't panic. When a letter comes through the post of HMRC, many social entrepreneurs they kind of panic in the sense that corporation tax they have to pay and they weren't aware again. Um, HMRC sends reminders, plenty of reminders. There's plenty of you can always go into Companies House website and see when your deadline is. Try to be on top of your finances and your deadlines as much as you can. I cannot emphasize enough that. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
I think that's about it. Again, if any of the social enterprises do wish to have a consultation with myself, Heidi should have my information on the slide, and you can always give me a call, and I'm always happy to help.
Yeah, it's been really good talking to you today, Mo, and finding out all about all these issues that people potentially come across. Um, as Mo says, they are offering free 45-minute consultations, and Mo's details and those for Harris Accountancy will be underneath the interview. So if you do want to get in touch and ask any questions that are specific to your circumstances, because it's quite important from what Mo has said today that you look at it from your own individual perspective rather than trying to look at it from a more general perspective, because everybody is different and there's always different issues. So it's been really good talking to you today, Mo, and actually doing it live in the same room as somebody. So thank you very much for your time today. Yeah, if you want to contact Mo, just check the details out below the video. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.